This is Outnumbered. I'm Andrea Tanteros, and here with us today, Harris Faulkner from our sister network, Fox Business's Kennedy, host of the upcoming new show, Kennedy, political commentator and national spokeswoman for the Libre Initiative, Rachel Campos-Duffy, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy, senior writer for the Weekly Standard and Fox News contributor, Stephen Hayes is here, and he's outnumbered. He's also a should-be hair model.
Hair model, really? What?
I think so. Got some great
I think I got to color that, you know?
No,
getting emails and tweets to color it.
When you get many compliments about your hair from women, you just
I'll take
go
it.
with
Maybe
it.
you're just trying to make me feel comfortable.
No, you just don't.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're not
and
that
also,
nice.
I have a nickname for you. The Flash. How did you get here so fast? I watched you falling asleep last night, and now
you
you're
watched
here.
me falling asleep?
Yeah.
Just to be clear,
I didn't fall
I'm
asleep
married.
to you.
You did not see me falling asleep. You were falling asleep.
No, you were next to Brett Baer. Which
That's right.
Okay,
Whoa,
now
wait a second. What is going on?
You got here very quickly, and we
I did, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it was fun. I got up early, did some reading, read the papers.
All right, great.
Good.
Well, we look forward to more analysis from you, so let's hit it. So much for elections having consequences. President Obama out of the gate swinging last night in his next-to-last State of the Union address, apparently ignoring the fact that his party took quite a drubbing at the polls 2 months ago, as he addressed for the first time a Congress firmly under Republican control. A defiant and confident President Obama threatening to use his veto power, count 'em, 4 times, promising to block any bill that comes to his desk that rolls back Obamacare, changes the Dodd-Frank Wall Street legislation, undoes his deportation amnesty, or imposes stronger sanctions on Iran for its nuclear program.
We can't put the security of families at risk by taking away their health insurance, or unraveling the new rules on Wall Street, or refighting past battles on immigration when we've got to fix a broken system. And if a bill comes to my desk that tries to do any of these things, I will veto it. It will have earned my veto.
The president's speech getting this mixed reaction from Republican Congressman Paul Ryan, the chair of the powerful House Ways and Means Committee.
Liberal speech by a liberal president. No surprises there. A lot of things I didn't agree with. Some things I did. I thought it was kind of a repeat of the greatest hits of the Obama administration, his lines. Having said all of that, his tone and tenor were less partisan and less divisive than we were led to believe and expect that we were going to get. There are some things he said that I think we can work together on, and I hope we can get those things done.
You guys from Wisconsin have great hair, by the way. But Republican Senator Rand Paul says he heard about a lot of free stuff, but not so much about how we're going to pay for it. And he didn't sound as hopeful when it comes to finding common ground with the White House.
Here's the thing. He wants bipartisanship. I called him several months ago. I have a bipartisan bill that I'm working with Senator Boxer on to lower the tax rate so American corporations will bring money home. He also mentioned this in his speech. But to lower the tax rate, more money comes home, and to put that money in the highway fund to build highways. So we lower the tax rate, get more revenue, and we can build more highways with it. I've called him on it, and I get no response, or I get maybe obstructionism.
Meantime, despite the tough talk, the American public appears to have a dim view of President Obama's job performance. Fox News polls find that in his 6th year in office, which officially ended this week, Mr. Obama's approval rating averaged 41%, his disapproval averaging 53%. Those approval numbers, the lowest for President Obama's time in office. All right, Stephen, I want to go to you first because quite a bit of cognitive dissonance. And I usually tend to not listen to what people say, but I watch what they do. So after listening to what President Obama said last night, now what do you think he's going to do?
Well, I don't think he can do very much. I mean, this was part of the problem with the speech. In his discussion of domestic policy, he's just so limited by a Republican Congress, and the plans that he laid out were sort of so crazy bold that there's no way they're going to actually do any of the things that he talked about, with the possible exception, as Paul Ryan mentioned, of trade. I'm pretty dubious about tax reform. But on foreign policy, where the president, you know, has maybe more latitude, more freedom to operate, he seemed to be living in a different world than the one that I'm living in. I mean, you read the papers every day and you read about advances that ISIS is making, problems in Syria, Russia having, you know, taken over, annexed the Crimean Peninsula, and the president last night in his speech pointed to Russia as a success, as an example of successful American leadership. And you just think, in what world is what happened in Russia over the past year a success for anybody other than Vladimir Putin.
And if you read the headlines yesterday, Harris, you could see the Middle East still burning.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, at a fever pitch, what happened in Yemen. He also didn't even mention Al-Qaeda, which was pretty shocking.
Not one mention of Al-Qaeda by name. ISIS has taken hostage 2 Japanese men on video for $200 million. We know that. They're threatening to assassinate them. The Yemen president is being held hostage by rebels. And we're teetering on what we're going to do, but we've pulled warships into the zone there, or the Red Sea, to get ready to evacuate our U.S. Embassy in Yemen if we need to. By the way, Dianne Feinstein, Senator of California, has already gone on record saying she thinks we need to do that immediately. That is the world that we're living in. I don't know if you caught this, but NBC foreign correspondent Richard Engel was reporting live from Istanbul. And last night, after everything was over, he was asked, well, what did you think watching from there? And he said, quote, reminiscent of what you said, it sounded like the president was outlining a world that he wishes we were all living in. He says the president has said that our military power is stopping ISIS's advance. And Engel said that just is not the case, according to military officials I've spoken to. So, I mean, there's criticism coming, particularly on the foreign policy front, because our reality is what it is. You can't change that with one speech. It's interesting the prism through which that was funneled at that speech last night.
And isn't, Kennedy, that the problem? I mean, that's where President Obama gets a lot of his criticism, is when he tries to address some tough topics. People go, you're living in a fantasy land. The way that you speak about ISIS, them being JV originally, it's like, I don't know if he's not reading his briefings, but he just seems to not be able to get it and grasp it, at least when it comes to foreign policy. And I think that was pretty much showcased last night.
And it wasn't just foreign policy, and it doesn't make him a weaker president. It doesn't make him a loser necessarily. If he admits that the globe is pretty hot right now, and there are some tough spots that we're going to have a very hard time manipulating ourselves out of and around, but you should at least acknowledge that. Because although he's not running for office again, I mean, these are flat-out lies. It goes beyond delusion, and I think it makes us a little bit less safe if we're not honest about the problems that we face abroad.
But I think it's hard for him to say that there are problems in the Middle East, because if you remember, he sold himself to us as somebody who had this connection to the Muslim world and could solve these problems, or at least simmer them down, by virtue of just being Obama and having had those Islamic experiences as a young person.
Rachel, before I ask you about the gossip, because you were there last night, I want to ask a little bit about the cognitive dissonance that I mentioned earlier. I mean, President Obama saying he wanted to work with Republicans, but then threatening veto power. Also last night, he seemed to taunt Republicans a little bit.
He was Vito Corleone.
Yeah, and he was making some digs about being reelected. Take a listen. I want you to react to his tone last night that seemed to be a bit confrontational. Listen.
I have no more campaigns to run. My only agenda, I know because I won both of them.
Oh, snap.
Right. Super arrogant, right? But here's what I picked up when I was in the room, was that people weren't listening. I actually sat next to a Democrat who had been invited by his, he was an African-American young man who had been invited by his, there I am, I snuck onto the House floor. And the African-American young man sitting next to me said this was just a really boring, bad speech, which, I mean, if he's not winning over that young man, I think officially people have stopped listening. And I've been to other State of the Unions, and usually there's electricity about just when the president walks in. I felt nothing. It was really flat. It was really strange. And also, members of the other side, no one wanted to grab his hand. And we've seen in other State of the Unions, not just under Obama's presidency, but the other side always wants to sort of be there and touch the president as he comes in. They didn't.
Well, there's no doubt that there's atrophy. I mean, I would say, you know, midway through anybody's second term, you've heard them speak probably never as much as you've heard this one president talk, because he does it a lot. I would just like to support and just say this. I don't know if that young man was disinterested necessarily, and that made it a big deal because he was black. It was a bigger deal because he was young and he's a Democrat. I think
the problem with what the president said, I mean, in my view, particularly on foreign policy and national security, is it's a problem for the American people if the president is sort of trying to sell us something that's not true, that's not reality. It's a bigger problem if the president actually believes the words that he's saying.
That's true. And by the way, if he wants to sink Hillary Clinton, as you know, the gossip mongers will say that there's a big rift between the Clinton and Obama camps, then he would admit that our foreign policy is a disaster, and he could argue that she's the architect of it.
But isn't that it, though, Stephen? You hit on it. I mean, he seems to believe his own hype, and that's always been a criticism from day one.
He does.
So we'll see what he does after this. I took the speech as Rachel pointed out, arrogant, confrontational, and expansive. And all of those things were confrontational, arrogant, and expansive government. So we'll see what happens next. All right, even though the president made no mention of healthcare.gov last night, it's making headlines today. A new report shedding light on why the launch of the Obamacare website was such a huge disaster amid new concerns that anyone who uses the site could become the victim of some major privacy violations. Plus, sex assault's a hot-button issue on college campuses these days, but now some female students say allowing boozy parties at sorority houses instead of the boys' fraternity houses could be the answer. We'll explain. And right after the show, catch more from the couch. Outnumbered Overtime, you know it. It starts at 1 p.m. Eastern every day. We're unfiltered. We're unplugged. You just need to plug in. Click on the Outnumbered tab, hashtag OneLuckyGuy. You can follow us. You can find us. We're online. Send your questions.
Recognize that swing? No turn, over the top, weight on the back foot. Now that spells disaster. Hi, I'm William Devane, and that was a disaster, but not half as bad as the market crash of 2008. The government bailed out the banks, but who bailed us out? I didn't get any money. Did anyone replace what you lost in your retirement? Lesson learned. Protect yourself now and transfer your existing IRAs to a Roslyn Capital Gold and Silver IRA. Don't let the disasters of the past cripple your future. Get a gold and silver IRA from Roslyn Capital. What's in your safe?
Call now to get a free gold kit, a free silver kit, and an IRA transfer kit. Call 800-630-8900. 800-630-8900. 800-630-8900.
All right, so this Tylenol arthritis lasts 8 hours, but Aleve can last 12 hours. And Aleve is proven to work better on pain than Tylenol arthritis. So why am I still thinking about this?
How are you?
Get Aleve, proven better on pain.
Release the magic. Bubba Witch 2. Download now.
In one moment, I felt it. I'm ready to lose weight, and I want to start now.
Well, you can count, track, and worry over every meal, or you can lose weight simply with Jenny Craig. Bam! 50 pounds gone.
Wow. How?
First, meet your dedicated personal consultant who will help you reach your goals. Then, take home delicious food and start losing now.
Visit JennyCraig.com for our best offer ever.
A moment can change your whole life.
With Jenny Craig.
Introducing the Starbucks Flat White. Crafted with 2 ristretto shots. For bolder, caramelly espresso. Whole milk. Steamed to a sweet, velvety microfoam. Delicately poured. So the espresso rises to the top. The perfect union of bold and sweet. Simplicity is its own artistry.
Exclusive. Bobby Jindal reacts to Obama's State of the Union and an attack on Hillary. Why the governor's calling her naive on a must-see Your World tonight.
Following the stock market lately can drive you crazy. Will oil continue to drop? Will it recover? Will the market move up? Will it move down? Who knows? Learn about the crash-proof retirement system created by Phil Cannella. It guarantees that when the market goes up, you go up. And when it goes down, you stay even. Join Phil and me at an educational event in Ambler, PA at the William Penn Inn. Call now. Reserve your seat.
Grab your backpack and map, because Nickelodeon's Dora the Explorer is coming to your town, and she can't wait to meet you. Now's your chance for you and your family to come give Dora a hug and tell her all about your explorations. Just follow your map to meet Dora the Explorer when she comes to your town.
Come meet Dora the Explorer at the Progressive Atlantic City Boat Show on Saturday, February 7th from noon until 4. Get tickets and details at acboatshow.com.
We are back on the couch. Welcome back to Outnumbered. Not one mention of the Obamacare website in last night's State of the Union, although it was an obsession in States of the Union past. But the site is making very big news today, according to a government watchdog agency, as the administration hired dozens of contractors to build healthcare.gov. It skipped crucial steps that may have prevented the disastrous rollout. The Hill reporting, quote, out of 6 contracts examined by the Inspector General's office, only 2 had been properly vetted before the government gave the green light. Most of the contractors also lacked cost estimates and signatures from agency officials to sign off on the project. The Inspector General also raised concerns with management at the project as a whole, underscoring that there was no single point of contact to oversee more than 60 contractors. Meantime, some major privacy concerns for anyone who uses healthcare.gov. The Associated Press is reporting customers' personal data is quietly being sent to private companies that specialize in advertising and analyzing internet data. That information can include your age, how much money you make, your zip code, whether you're a smoker, and if you're pregnant. And now leading lawmakers have sent a letter to the Obama administration asking for an explanation as to how they make sure that information isn't improperly shared. So, Andrea, I ask you, is this incompetence or was this a rush to get the site up and running?
I think it's both. And there is there's a huge focus on this, not just because we've seen Central Command be hacked and we know that cybersecurity is a threat, but if you look at the information, and you mentioned some of it, Kennedy, that people have to submit if they want to sign up, it's more than just the typical age, birthday, social security number. I mean, you have to provide details about criminal past, immigration, and what makes this different is the government agency, the IRS, is sending that information to each government agency to cross-reference it and to validate it. And so it's being sent all over the place, only to be sent back. So our information isn't just in certain agencies, it's in all the agencies and
centralized and disseminated.
And it's also in the hands of the insurers, which is another worry that
and you make a good point. I mean, this is your most personal information. What you submit on an insurance, a health insurance application, I can't imagine anything that I would want compromised less. Now, Stephen, I know you share my love for protecting civil liberties. How does it put the average American's privacy at risk?
Well, I think I'd be very nervous putting my information in there. In fact, I had a conversation with a doctor, this is now a couple months ago, and we were talking about the kinds of questions that were asked on the website, and the doctor said to me flatly, I would lie. I wouldn't share all my information because I'd be worried about it getting hacked. I mean, it looks like this, we knew what the problems were, and now we have an explanation for the problems, and the explanation is this has been implemented precisely the way that it was passed, which is to say thrown together last minute, you know, one side not talking to the other, one bureaucracy not sharing information with the other, and then sharing it quickly and in an ad hoc way, in a way that I think is troubling.
And so critical that this should have been carefully measured, and it wasn't.
It wasn't. First of all, also the CFPB that was started by Elizabeth Warren, the Consumer Protection Board, is also collecting all of our credit card information, so you can add that to it. I just want to say, just as a regular person, if you've ever met somebody that's had their identity stolen, it is traumatic, and if you're busy, it takes up hours of your life. For a president who claims to care so